Disappearing with $4 billion and going unpunished is fantastic, especially in a world where every crypto transaction is recorded forever on the blockchain. But Amir and Rice Kaji did the impossible. They cracked not the code, but human greed. My name is Mr. Dark Web, and today I'm going to tell you a story that has changed the perception of what ordinary teenagers with internet access can do. The story begins in the year 2019 in South Africa, where two brothers, 17-year-old Amir and 20-year-old Rice Kaji, lived the ordinary life of a poor African family. But in their heads, a plan was already brewing that would shake the entire crypto world in 2 years. Imagine, you are a teenager from a poor family, living in a country with high unemployment and limited opportunities. All around you are millions of people dreaming of financial freedom. And every day on the internet, there is news about how cryptocurrencies make people millionaires literally overnight. This is exactly the picture the Kaji brothers saw in 2019. And it was then that they had an idea that seemed crazy. What if they created a platform that would automatically trade bitcoins and bring people a stable profit? In February 2019 was born AfriCrypt, a cryptocurrency platform that promised investors something they could only dream of. The brothers positioned it as a revolutionary service that used artificial intelligence to automatically trade bitcoins. Sounds impressive, doesn't it? But the most impressive thing was in the numbers. AfriCrypt promised investors 10% profit per day. Think about this figure, 10% every day. This meant that if you invested $1,000 in a month, you would receive more than $17,000. And in 2 months, almost $300,000. I must admit that from a marketing point of view, the scheme was brilliant. The Kaji brothers understood the psychology of their countrymen like no one else. In a country where the average salary was a few $100s a month, the promise of such income sounded like music. But how did two unknown teenagers convince people to trust them with their savings? This is where the most interesting part of the story begins. The first thing the brothers did was to create an impressive website with a professional design. It featured complex charts, technical terms, and, of course, a description of a unique AI algorithm that supposedly analyzed the market 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and made profitable trades. It looked convincing to most people. Beautiful graphics, scientific terms, promises of future technologies, all this created an aura of seriousness and innovation. But the real breakthrough came when celebrities got involved in AfriCrypt's publicity. South African rapper Nastia C, footballer Benny McCarthy, and even Hollywood star Charlize Theron have all appeared in one way or another in the platform's promotional materials. Moreover, even members of the ruling African National Congress Party have shown public interest in the project. Imagine how much weight it carried for ordinary people. If stars and politicians believe in the project, it must be really serious, right? Aggressive marketing was doing its job. Stories spread throughout South Africa of people doubling and tripling their savings thanks to AfriCrypt. The word of mouth worked perfectly. Each satisfied customer brought in new investors. By the end of 2019, AfriCrypt had become a phenomenon. Thousands of South Africans, from ordinary laborers to wealthy businessmen, invested their money in the Kaji brothers platform. But the most striking thing about this story is not how quickly AfriCrypt's popularity grew. The most striking thing is that the brothers were buying luxury cars, expensive property, and living the lifestyle of millionaires right in front of their investors. Amir and Rais did not hide their sudden wealth. On the contrary, they flaunted it as proof of the effectiveness of their system. After all, if the creators themselves become millionaires thanks to their algorithm, it means that it really works. The logic was ironclad. Investors saw the result and wanted the same for themselves. By the beginning of the year 2020, the platform had attracted tens of thousands of customers across South Africa. Money was flowing. AfriCrypt was processing millions of dollars worth of transactions every month. Everything looked like the story of a perfect startup. Two young geniuses created a revolutionary technology, attracted investment, and are now changing the world of finance. But, as you may have guessed, there was one very big but to this tale. None of the investors knew what was really happening with their money. No one knew that behind the beautiful facade of a high-tech platform, there was a completely different reality. A reality that turned AfriCrypt into one of the most audacious financial scams in the history of cryptocurrencies. And it is this hidden side of the story that we will talk about now. Imagine you are an AfriCrypt investor. Every day you log in and see your Bitcoins growing. 10% in a day, as promised. Beautiful charts show successful trades. The algorithm works flawlessly. You're happy. You finally found a way to get rich. But what if I told you that all those charts were fake? That there were no trades? That your money never even left the Kaji brothers' wallet? Welcome to the reality of AfriCrypt. Behind the beautiful facade of a high-tech platform was one of the oldest fraudulent schemes in the history of finance, a Ponzi scheme. Named after the Italian swindler Charles Ponzi, this scheme works on a simple principle. Money from new investors is used to pay off old investors. No AI algorithm existed. There was no automated trading. All those impressive charts on the AfriCrypt website were drawn manually or generated by simple scripts. Admittedly, the Kaji brothers modernized the classic scheme to suit the realities of the cryptocurrency world. When an investor transferred his bitcoins to the AfriCrypt address, they went directly into the brothers' personal wallets rather than into the trading algorithm. Imagine the scale of this scam. Thousands of people sent their cryptocurrencies every day thinking they were participating in a revolutionary trading program. But in reality, they were just feeding two teenagers who were spending that money on a life of luxury. But the most ingenious part of the scheme was not how the brothers stole the money. The most ingenious part was how they convinced people that there was no theft. Remember how Amir and Rice bought expensive cars and property? That wasn't mere bragging. It was a top-class psychological operation. Seeing the wealth of the platform's creators, investors thought, if they themselves got rich thanks to their algorithm, then I can too. The brothers' luxurious life served as living proof of AfriCrypt's effectiveness. But how did the brothers know when to stop? How did they realize that the pyramid was about to collapse? This is where the most interesting part of the story begins. By the end of the year 2020, the size of AfriCrypt had reached critical mass. The platform was processing tens of thousands of bitcoins, and the number of investors numbered in the tens of thousands. Any Ponzi scheme is doomed to failure. Sooner or later, new investors become insufficient to pay the old ones. And the KG brothers realized this perfectly well. That's why they started preparing for their disappearance long before April 2021. The first step was to become a citizen of the island nation of Vanuatu. This small Pacific nation is famous for two things: the ability to obtain a passport quickly for investment and the absence of extradition treaties with most countries in the world. A few months before AfriCrypt collapsed, the Kaji brothers became full citizens of Vanuatu. They could not now be extradited to South Africa or any other country for prosecution. But citizenship was just the beginning. The real preparation took place in the digital world. The brothers started using Bitcoin mixers, special services that mix cryptocurrency from different sources, making it virtually untraceable. Imagine dropping your coin into a huge cauldron of millions of other coins, stirring and pulling out a random one. It becomes almost impossible to trace which coin was yours. The brothers converted part of their bitcoins into Monero, the world's most anonymous cryptocurrency. Unlike Bitcoin, where all transactions are recorded in an open blockchain, Monero hides information about the sender, the recipient, and the amount of the transfer. They transferred the other part into stablecoins, cryptocurrencies pegged to the US dollar. This allowed them to protect themselves from fluctuations in the Bitcoin exchange rate and to withdraw money more easily into the traditional financial system. But the smartest move was to create a legend of a hacker attack. You see, if a crypto exchange just disappears, it immediately raises suspicions. But if an exchange falls victim to hackers, that's a different matter. In the world of cryptocurrencies, hacker attacks happen regularly, and the public is used to them. A few weeks before the staged attack, the brothers began gradually withdrawing funds from their main AfriCrypt wallets. This was done in small amounts so as not to attract the attention of automated blockchain monitoring systems. At the same time, they denied access to the company's financial systems to all employees except themselves. Officially, this was explained as strengthening security. But in reality, the brothers were simply eliminating witnesses. And so came the morning of the 13th of April in the year 2021. AfriCrypt customers woke up to find a shocking message on their email addresses. The platform was subjected to a large-scale cyber attack. All investor funds have disappeared. The website is down. The support team is silent. But the most interesting part was in the text of the letter. The KG brothers urged clients not to contact the police or lawyers. They reasoned that legal action could damage the platform's reputation and delay the recovery of funds. Imagine the audacity of stealing people's money and asking them not to complain. But for many investors, the letter was the last straw. They believed that the brothers had indeed fallen victim to hackers and were working to restore the platform. By the time AfriCrypt customers received this email, Amir and Reis Kaji were on their way to another country. They disappeared, taking with them 69,000 bitcoins worth about $4 billion. When worried investors arrived at AfriCrypt's Johannesburg office a few days later, they found an ordinary apartment block. No servers, no sign of a tech company, just empty rooms and the shattered dreams of thousands of people. The scheme was ingenious in its simplicity. Two teenagers defrauded the whole world, using not sophisticated technology, but simple human greed. But the story doesn't end there, because the most incredible thing about the AfriCrypt case is not how the brothers stole the money. The most incredible thing is what happened next, when the whole world started looking for them. When $4 billion disappear in a single day, the world is not indifferent. Within hours of receiving the hacker attack email, South African investors sprang into action. Some called the police, despite the brothers' pleas not to do so. Some sought legal advice. Some tried to find any trace of Amir and Rice on social media, but the brothers seemed to vanish into thin air. Honeycomb Attorneys, a law firm representing the interests of the affected investors, filed an official application with the South African police. Interpol became involved in the case and put the Kaji brothers on the international wanted list. Admittedly, it seems impossible to disappear in the 21st century, when your every move is tracked by cameras, bank cards, and mobile phones. But the brothers have prepared for this moment with German meticulousness. Passport and aviation control systems revealed a startling picture. The Kaji brothers had never officially crossed the borders of South Africa, at least not under their real names. This meant only one thing. They used forged documents or found a way to leave the country bypassing official controls. Investigators worked day and night combing through the brothers' digital footprints. Blockchain analysts tracked the movement of stolen bitcoins through dozens of wallets and mixers. International intelligence agencies checked every airport, every border. And then, 4 months after the disappearance, there was a breakthrough. In August 2021, Swiss investigators discovered a rented safe deposit box in a Zurich bank. It contained a Trezor Model T hardware cryptocurrency wallet, potentially containing some of the stolen funds. But the most interesting thing was not the wallet itself, but who put it there. The bank's surveillance cameras captured a young man renting a safe deposit box a few weeks before Africrypt collapsed. The facial recognition system gave a match. Amir Kaji. The Swiss authorities put the bank under surveillance and waited. And they waited. On the 9th of November 2021, Amir Kaji showed up at the bank to gain access to his safe deposit box. Perhaps he thought the Swiss bank's secrecy would protect him. Perhaps he was simply a victim of his own self-confidence. One way or another, the 17-year-old crypto Afro-genius was arrested that day. He was charged with money laundering. Amir spent 6 months in pretrial detention, refusing to cooperate with the investigation and refusing to disclose the location of the stolen funds. But the Swiss legal system proved more flexible than investigators expected. In May 2022, Amir was released on bail of 300,000 Swiss francs, about $375,000. The conditions were strict. Surrender of his passport, a ban on leaving Switzerland and regular police checks. For a man who stole $4 billion, that kind of bail was ridiculous. But the most interesting thing happened in parallel with Amir's arrest. In November of the year 2021, injured Africrypt investors received an unexpected offer. A mysterious investor offered them $5 million in compensation in exchange for dropping all claims against the Kaji brothers. $5 million against $4 billion in stolen funds. An insultingly small amount, but for many ruined investors it was at least some money. The investigators had no doubt the brothers themselves or their proxies were behind the offer. They tried to buy the silence of the victims while Amir was under investigation. A few hundred investors agreed to the deal. The rest continued to fight for justice. Meanwhile, Amir lived in Switzerland under the supervision of the authorities, playing the role of a repentant criminal. He regularly reported to the police, complied with all court orders, and even gave several interviews to local media, where he portrayed himself as a victim of circumstances. "I was young and stupid," he told reporters. "My older brother got me into this scheme, and I didn't realize all the consequences. But it was just a game." For 18 months, Amir waited patiently for his time. He knew that the Swiss authorities would sooner or later relax their control. All he had to do was wait for the right moment. And that moment came in August of the year 2023. The Swiss court, seeing Amir's exemplary behavior, decided to return his passport. Officially, this was explained by the need to resolve personal issues and prepare for the trial. In fact, it was a fatal mistake. The same day Amir got his passport back, he disappeared from Switzerland. Surveillance cameras picked him up at Zurich Airport, but the trail went no further. $375,000 of bail remained in the Swiss bank. For Amir, it was just a trifle, the price of freedom. The second escape was even more daring than the first. Amir disappeared right from under the noses of the European security services, with all the necessary documents in hand. Where did he go? Unofficial sources named different versions: Dubai, Tanzania, Great Britain. But Amir's exact whereabouts remained a mystery. His brother, Rice, remained missing all this time. There had been no reliable information about his whereabouts since April 2021. By the year 2024, the AfriCrypt case had reached a dead end. The brothers had disappeared. The stolen bitcoins vanished into the maze of mixers and anonymous wallets. International investigative bodies continued their search, but without much result. 69,000 bitcoins, which were worth $4 billion in the year 2021, rose in value to $7.5 billion by the year 2024. The KG brothers became even richer without even touching their funds. But the most incredible thing about this story was not how cleverly the brothers escaped justice. The most incredible thing was what happened in the legal sphere. Because it turns out that stealing $4 billion and going unpunished in the 21st century is not only possible, it can be perfectly legal. And it is this shocking discovery that we will talk about next. How do you steal $4 billion and get away with it? The answer to this question turned out to be shockingly simple. You just need to find a legal loophole that no one will notice. And the Kaji brothers found that loophole. In 2024, as the international hunt for the brothers entered its third year, an event occurred that put an end to the AfriCrypt case. The South African Financial Supervisory Authority has released an official statement that shocked even seasoned lawyers and investigators. It turned out that AfriCrypt had never been registered as a financial institution in South Africa. The brothers positioned their platform as a technology company providing trading software rather than a financial institution. Sound like a technicality? It was actually an ingenious legal ploy. As AfriCrypt was not formally a financial organization, it was not subject to investor protection laws. Moreover, regulators had no legal basis to investigate its activities. Imagine the absurdity of the situation. A company has attracted $4 billion of investment, but it remains outside the jurisdiction of financial regulators. It would be like a bank operating without a license, but still outside the jurisdiction of banking supervision. The statement from the financial service was ruthless in its legal precision. As AfriCrypt was never registered as a financial organization, there is no legal basis for an investigation. No one can be held liable, and there are no rights to damages. With one document, thousands of victims have lost any hope of justice. Admittedly, the Kaji brothers' plan worked perfectly. They didn't just steal the money. They created a legal structure that made stealing it a formally non-criminal offense. 69,000 bitcoins, which were worth $4 billion in the year 2021, rose in value to $7.5 billion by the year 2024. The brothers became even richer without even touching their cryptocurrency wallets. Amir and Rice Kaji disappeared forever, leaving behind only the legend of the most audacious crypto affair in history. To understand the scale of their achievement, let's compare AfriCrypt to other major cryptocurrency scams. Canadian exchange Quadriga CX, whose founder Gerald Cotton died under mysterious circumstances, has lost $162 million. Japan's Mt. Gox lost $460 million due to a hacker attack. The Poly Network platform lost $610 million, but the hackers recovered the money. Turkish stock exchange Thodex and its founder Faruk Fatih Özer stole $2 billion, but Özer was caught and sentenced to 11,196 years in prison. And the KG brothers? They stole twice as much and got away with it. If AfriCrypt's loss amount is confirmed at $7.5 billion, that makes it the largest cryptocurrency heist in human history. But the AfriCrypt case is not just a story about stealing money. It is a story of how two teenagers from a poor African family outsmarted the entire international financial system. They showed the world that in the age of digital currencies and the global economy, you can steal billions and get away with it if you know how to circumvent the legal systems of different countries. AfriCrypt has come to symbolize the vulnerability of the modern financial system to technological innovation and legal loopholes. The story of the Kaji brothers taught the world a cruel lesson. In the world of cryptocurrencies, traditional laws are often powerless, and investor greed can be the most powerful weapon of fraudsters. Today, somewhere in the world, live two young men who, at 17 and 20, committed the perfect crime. They prove that sometimes the most audacious plans really do work. Amir and Rais Kaji are gone, but their story lives on. It has become a warning to investors and a headache for regulators. In a world where every transaction is recorded on the blockchain forever, the Kaji brothers managed to become invisible. In an era of total surveillance, they disappeared without a trace. They found a loophole in the international justice system that made them untouchable. $7.5 billion. Total impunity. The perfect 21st century crime. The story of AfriCrypt is over, but its effects will be felt for years to come, because the Kaji brothers showed the world. If you are smart enough, bold enough, and know where to look for loopholes in the system, even the most fantastic scam can become a reality. And the worst part of this story isn't that two teenagers stole billions of dollars. The worst part is that they showed how it could be done.